All right, so this week we want to do an artist that has stretched through all kind of eras and chapters and genres of American music. His name is Chris Hillman. Many music fans have probably already heard of Chris Hillman, but he was in the Byrds. He was originally the bass player in the Byrds, which gets him a place in my heart already right off the bat. But he's also a great frontman and a great, great singer. He was also in the Flying Burrito Brothers, which was many music fans might already be familiar with that group. Which had Gram Parsons in it, most notably. He also had a band called Manassas, and in the 80s, a band called the Desert Rose Band. And specifically, although we want to talk about his career and influence as a whole, specifically, I kind of just had a really personal connection with his album under his own name, which is called Morning Sky. It came out in 1982. There's the cover, yeah, looking very dashing there with a great plaid shirt, piercing blue eyes, kind of a towering figure of music. He also has, we wanted to mention right off the bat from the get-go, he has a book out that's really cool. It's called Time Between My Life as a Bird, Burrito Brother, and Beyond. You can actually get a signed copy from him directly on his website for $40, which is like a total no-brainer. I mean, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame through the Byrds, inducted in 1991. And in 2017, he did a record called Biding My Time that was co-produced by none other than Tom Petty. He actually does the Wildflowers song by Petty at the end of the record. It's a beautiful rendition of the Wildflowers song, which is pretty famous by Petty. I'm sure many folks have heard that song before. This is obviously right before Petty died, essentially. So that's kind of moving. They were actually kind of a little bit acquainted because Petty recorded So You Say You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star, right? Which was huge, I'm sure, payday for Hillman, was also a big hit for the Byrds in their own right. I had a little bit of a personal connection with Hillman, but right off the bat, tell me about what are some of the highlights or the most notable kind of aspects of Hillman's career for you, and when did you first encounter him? Maybe I always like to kind of ask you that question because you've been a music fan and collector for so many years. I'm always kind of curious when you first heard of someone and just kind of what keeps them in your canon, in your library there behind you, you know?
Well, if you read about all the things that he's done, all the bands he's been in, all the different lineups and stuff that he's participated in, it's hard to remember a time for me when I wasn't aware of Chris Hillman. I mean, I've, like everybody else of my, at least of my generation, it was the Byrds that brought it all forward for us. And, you know, he was the guy and the bass player. And, you know, I should mention too, besides just ringing a bell kind of a singer and a just rock solid bass player by trade, he's a just wonderful mandolin player and guitar player. And anyway, you know, and then the Burrito Brothers, that era is what really, and of course the Sweetheart of the Rodeo, which is such an iconic record for all of us that have any interest in American roots music, country rock, the so-called Americana field. I still have a hard time with that Americana term, but I guess it helps, you know, describe a general area. And I love this record. It came out in 82. And I will also give a sideways shout anytime we have a record that has its genesis in Sugar Hill Records. And I always say it's not the hip hop label from New York. Was a bluegrass label out of Durham, North Carolina, that was founded by an amazing gentleman named Barry Poss, who worked at County Records and County Sales and started his own thing. And this was one of them that he brought out before he passed on and the label got absorbed into EMI Capital, whatever the heck it is now. Anyway, Sugar Hill Records brought this record out in 1982. And it was kind of just a really fresh breeze from Chris Hillman because he just returned to his bluegrass roots, which he has deep, deep history in. I mean, we all think of him as the Byrds, you know, but he was in the bluegrass scene in LA, and LA had a smoking bluegrass scene back in the late 50s and early and mid 60s. Part of his story is that, you know, he's born in 1944, and in 1959, he went at age 15 and had one of those moments, I guess. And he went to the Ash Grove, which we've talked about because of the Dave Alvin song and album title and the storied history of the Ash Grove Club. And he saw the Kentucky Colonels, which I'm sure was, if you're interested in that kind of music and bluegrass, was a mind expanding experience. I mean, that was Clarence White, Billy Ray Latham, and those guys. And I think it probably snapped his wig. It was already moving in that direction. And he immediately, I think, got into further activities in bluegrass. I think he had to get permission. I mean, he was only 15 and probably took a bus ride. I forget the story to get to the Ash Grove. And he got into a band called the Hillman. And, I think early on ran into Herb Pedersen back in the day and became a part of the scene. So his roots in this music are way, way, way deep, so when he sings and plays and picks songs for this kind of a record, I mean, it's as real and as honest as it gets, in my opinion, and it comes through in the feel of this record. It's just it's a beautiful thing. I mean, what else can you say? And another thing that ties me to this record, and I'll pass it back to you, is I look at things as like where you remember songs and who did them and how they threaded through, at least in my case, through my concert and festival going and records being bought and listened to and obsessed about. And I remember hearing this Morning Sky song early on. It's a Dan Fogelberg song, and I don't want to break bad on Dan, but wasn't the kind of artist that I was particularly into. But he wrote some beautiful songs that were adapted for other folk and bluegrass uses. And he did a whole bluegrass recording, which is part of the Hillman story. But anyway, I would go to Johnson City to the Down Home Pickin' Parlor, and they had a festival every summer and spring and fall. And there was a group that went there that played there just many of the times called Front Porch String Band. And that was an amazing thing. Just a wonderful, wonderful singer, Claire Lynch, who is very much still around, has a voice like an angel, and her then husband had this band, and they would do this song, and it was tattooed on me from that experience in what was probably mid to late 70s. Their debut record right here, the Country Rain, was 1977, and Morning Sky is a lead song. So whatever that means, and the rambling tie together, threading of it all, and then when Chris Hillman brought this out with that album title and covered that song as well, I'm like, wow, it was already there for me. It's been a lot.
Yeah. I love when artists take songs and really bring it, to a different level like that. Certainly one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of use the Morning Sky record as a focal point, maybe because his career is, as we were discovering, his resume and, credits and awards and all that stuff are so staggering. But the fact that that's a solo record that's just his from 82, the Sugar Hill connection is cool and personal. And also for me, I had that record when I was in college, my first couple apartments in New York. And just listen to it a lot. It's got so many great songs. We talked about the Bob Dylan song at the very beginning, which is just beautifully rendered. Then there's the song Ripple, which of course most folks probably know really from the Grateful Dead, but in my personal opinion, I prefer this version. It's just so perfect. It's amazing. Song Mexico was really cool. I kind of liked that one. A little bit of a kind of cheeky, playful song, but all the harmonies on the record are so good. It's kind of a country record, but a little bit bluegrass at the same time, which is kind of my one of my favorite flavors, you might say. It's got like pedal steel. We were talking about the band. I mean, Al Perkins and Emory Gordy Jr. we were talking about, who of course played with Elvis and Emmylou, and it's kind of just a Mount Rushmore of bluegrass and country bass figures. I had a personal connection with him, like we talked about, because I played with Peter Rowan when I was, on my 20th birthday in 2004. And Herb Pedersen and Chris Hillman played with Peter. So I met, Chris and Herb, and was totally starstruck. I had a great time playing with them there. And then they were very gracious, and they invited me to come hang out with them and play a little in the dressing room at, BB King's in New York a few days later. But the funny part about that was I was riding out to the festival with Peter Rowan in the van, and we stopped at a gas station. And I got out of the van and went in the gas station and was just wandering around the aisles as one does, looking for the best bad food available, essentially. Whatever your version of that is, on some country road and some podunk, filling station. And there they were in the gas station. It's probably the last gas station before you went down the festival dirt road or whatever. And I had never met them, but I recognized them obviously, and was kind of too starstruck or too shy to walk up to them and try and explain that I was playing with Peter, because I was 20 years old, but then Peter walked in and, of course, recognized them and introduced them. We actually kind of met in this crappy little gas station. Then we all piled back in the car. They were like running late for their set or something. My only other personal interaction with him was later on. I tried to call him. And I don't know if it sounded like maybe he was taking a post sound check pre-show nap or something. I'm not sure. He was very polite, but kind of a little, I don't know if maybe he was on West Coast time. I said, "Hey, this is Aaron. I played with you a couple weeks ago. I just want to tell you how much I love your music," or something. He was pretty sweet, but kind of not abrupt, but just, very gracious, but it sounded a little like I said, maybe I'd woken him up or something. But he was just nice enough to talk to me for a minute, and that meant a lot to me. And I don't know what else to say about Chris Hillman other than, there's plenty been written about him. You can go on and Google the things that really make him a part of, American music history are pretty well written about and documented, which would be Sweethearts of the Rodeo, Gilded Palace of Sin. We talked about that briefly. That's pretty well trod stuff for a lot of music, journalism and whatnot. But they're great records. If anyone out there that's watching this hasn't heard those records, you should go listen to those, because those are the kind of the big masterpieces of the Byrds and the Flying Burrito Brothers, among other great records, throughout. I don't know what else there is to really say. We wanted to plug his book because it looks really cool. I need to get a copy myself and read it. I have so little time to read these days, but it's one I just love to have on my shelf for when I get the chance to get around to it. I don't know what else. You got in your hand over there, some lyrics.
I'm ready. I want to shout out to Herb Pedersen too. Those two have been thick as thieves for so long. And a lot of times when you find one, Hillman, you'll find Pedersen there. And Herb Pedersen is just one of those magical musicians. He's not one of these, stand out front and draw attention kind of guys. He's kind of one of those low-key guys that's the glue in a situation. He's always in service of the song. And the harmonies that those two bring to the table, Hillman and Pedersen, and this guy Kenny Wirtz brings the third voice in harmony vocals in this recording that we're talking about, this Morning Sky. But that's what I love about this record is you've got Hillman's got this unique, in my opinion, voice. It's just like what I call ringing a bell kind of a voice. It's this perfect tenor. It's perfectly in tune. Then you have this foggy, just amazing harmony blanket that goes around it on some of these songs, on the choruses and the verses and the different places. And I love that. And I also think it's important to kind of give a real fast roll call to the song list. Tomorrow is a long time. It's just a stunning Bob Dylan song that opens it up. The Taker, Chris Christopherson, Shel Silverstein song.
Yeah, very cool.
Maybe Waylon and some others have done. Chris, of course. Here Today and Gone Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Great song. Morning Sky, of course, the Fogelberg thing that's bluegrass driven here. Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues, a Danny O'Keefe song that was a big hit, but it's just beautifully rendered here. And Don't Let Your Sweet Love Die is a shout out to the classic late 50s, early 60s bluegrass, Reno and Smiley song from 61. Mexico, the iconic Southern California, yeah. I messed up kind of song. It's Happening to You, beautiful John Prine song, and of course closes rather significantly with Hickory Wind, which is so moving when someone like Chris Hillman, who's got such provenance in that song and in Parsons' oeuvre, brings it to bear. Very short, 10 songs, and it's just beautiful. I don't know what else I could say. I just love it when Pedersen and Hillman get together.
Yeah, that is worth mentioning here at the end, especially that record behind you, Lonesome Feeling. I have that too. That's a gorgeous, I mean, we should probably do a deep stacks on him and that record really unto itself, probably. Yeah, that is worth mentioning. The two of them together are kind of a classic team in the way that sometimes in like the jazz genre, you'll have trios or duos or things that have gone on for, multiple decades. And there's something really special about it. Yeah, Herb and Chris has got that. And the other thing we kind of neglected that you brought up there is the fact that the 3-part vocal harmonies on this record in particular are just as good as it gets, 5 stars, which is one of those things that a lot of people do attempt kind of badly, or it's kind of cheesy, like it's in tune, but it's kind of a little cheesy. But man, on this record, it's like these guys, they know how to do it, and they bring it. I mean, the whole thing, all the pedal steel on there, and like we said, the Emery Gordery on bass, and
Al Perkins, yeah. Oh my God.
The song selection, like you just ran down, is amazing. You can tell, like, Chris Hillman, if you read about him, like I said, there's been so much written about Chris Hillman, but he in the Byrds, he was in a lot of ways one of the leaders in most of those groups. He was the person that was in a lot of ways kind of helping to keep the ship steady amid a lot of artistic chaos, as well as choose the songs. He was kind of had that maybe the most business sense of the guys in the group. He was just kind of that rock centerpiece leader figure in several of those bands. And I feel like when you listen to like Morning Sky, just as a songwriter myself, the songs are so well chosen. They're all really well balanced. And like he said, he's taken songs that were great songs and almost improved them from, in a lot of cases, what the original versions were, which is just obviously our two opinions and nothing more. But I love it.
Another thing, go ahead.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
Another thing that should be touched on before we bring it on home here is the Desert Rose Band, which evolved not long after this period. This was 82. He did a second Sugar Hill record called Desert Rose. And then at some point, you can read all the details if you want to be the scholar on it. But the band sort of coalesced into what became the Desert Rose Band. John Jorgensen, the just jaw-dropping, face-melting Telecaster guy, joined the crew. And then you had Herb and Jorgensen and Hillman and I think Al Perkins, and then some others, and little guy Bill Bryson on bass. But that was an amazing moment there for a number of records. Those guys, I saw them live one time, and it was just, oh my God. And those records, they have great songs on them, just like this one. They did one that had a duet with Emmylou. Anyway, Desert Rose Band. Sort of where this wandered to, not but a few years after this recording.
Well, amen to all that. Anyone out there, if you haven't really dug into Chris Hillman, if you kind of know who it is, get on it, dig in end to end. If you already kind of know about it, it's worth revisiting. Like, as always, when I do these things, I learn some new things.
Get this Herb Pedersen record.
Get the Herb Pedersen record, Lonesome Feeling, because that's a classic too.
An easy ride from good times to the blues. Yeah.
I'll never forget shaking his hand too. He had just a great, loving presence, both those guys. Sweethearts, the Rodeo, the Byrds, 1968, Gilded Palace of Sin, Flying Burrito Brothers, right? Bakersfield Bound, which was actually those two guys together. Our kind of choice for a focal point starting place was Morning Sky 1982, Sugar Hill. And then last but not least, 2017 Biding My Time, which was co-produced by the late great Thomas Earl Petty. And also check out the book Time Between My Life as a Berg Breeder Brother and Beyond. You can get it on Amazon, but hey, why not support the artist directly? You can get it on Hillman's website. It says you can get a signed copy, like I said, for $40. I mean, my head is exploding. That's amazing. So you can support him like that, or just check out his music. That's it.
I want to say thank you, Chris. Beaming at you right here on this part of the screen from Greenville, South Carolina, where there are many tall pines. And we appreciate you. Keep it coming long as you can, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks to Chris Hillman for all that great music. And we love you in Nashville. And y'all keep listening to good stuff. Check out your local record store. Go see your local bands. Do all that good stuff. And yeah, we'll see everybody soon.